Hello everyone, my name is Eva Chadda and today I'm going to be doing my Trinity Grade 6 in Drama and Speech. I'll first start off with my task 1, Television by Roald Dahl. The most important thing we've learned so far as children are concerned is never let them near your television set. Or better still, just don't install the idiotic thing at all. In almost every house we've been, we've watched them gaping at the screen. They loll and slop and lounge about and stare until their eyes pop out. Last week, in someone's place we saw eyeballs on the floor. They sit and stare and stare and sit until they're hypnotized by it. Until they're absolutely drunk with all that shocking, ghastly junk. Oh yes, we know, it keeps them still. They don't climb out of the windowsill. They never fight or kick or punch. They leave you free to cook the lunch and wash the dishes in the sink. But did you ever stop to think? To wonder just exactly what this does to your beloved tot? It rots the sense in the head. It kills imagination dead. It clogs and clutters up the mind. It makes a child so dull and blind. He can no longer understand a fantasy, a fairyland. His brain becomes as soft as cheese. His powers of thinking rust and freeze. He cannot think. He only sees. All right, you'll cry. All right, you'll say. But if we take the set away, what shall we do to entertain our darling children? Please explain. We'll answer this by asking you what use the darling ones to do, how use they'd keep themselves contented before this monster was invented. Have you forgotten? Don't you know? We'll say it very loud and slow. They used to read. They'd read and read and read and read and then proceed to read some more. Great Scott, gadzooks! The younger ones had Beatrix Potter with Mr. Todd, the dirty rotter, and Squirrel Nutkin, Pigling Bland, and Mrs. Tiggywinkle, and just how the camel got his hump, and how the monkey lost his rump, and Mr. Todd, and bless my soul, there's Mr. Rat and Mr. Mole. Oh, books! What books they used to know, those children living long ago. So please, oh please, we beg, we pray, go throw your TV set away. And in its place, you can install a lovely bookshelf on the wall. Then fill the shelves with lots of books, ignoring all the dirty looks. The screams, the yells, the bites, the kicks, and children hitting you with sticks. Fear not, because we promise you that in about a week or two of having nothing else to do, they'll now begin to feel the need of having something to read. And once they start, oh boy, you'll watch the slowly growing joy that fills their hearts. They'll grow so keen. They'll wonder what they'd ever seen in that ridiculous machine. That nauseating, foul, unclean, repulsive television screen. And later, each and every kid will love you more for what you did. I will now proceed to my task 2, Greta Thunberg's speech at the UN Climate Action Summit. This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words. And yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction. And all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight? You say that you hear us and you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and kept on failing to act, then you would be evil. And that I refuse to believe. The popular idea of cutting our emissions in half in 10 years only gives us a 50% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees Celsius and the risk of setting off irreversible chain reactions beyond human control. 50% may be acceptable to you, but those numbers do not include tipping points, most feedback loops, additional warming hidden by toxic air pollution, or the aspects of equity and climate justice. They also rely on my generation, sucking hundreds of billions of tons of your CO2 out of the air with technologies that barely exist. So a 50% risk is simply not acceptable to us, we who have to live with the consequences. To have a 67% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees global temperature rise, the best odds given by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The world had 420 gigatons of CO2 left back to emit on January 1st, 2018. Today, that figure is already down to less than 350 gigatons. How dare you pretend that this can be solved with just business as usual and some technical solutions? With today's emission levels, that remaining CO2 budget will be entirely gone within 8.5 years. There will not be any solutions or plans presented in line with these numbers here today, because these numbers are too uncomfortable and you are still not mature to tell it like it is. You are failing us, but the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say, we will never forgive you. We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now is where we draw the line. The world is waking up and change is coming, whether you like it or not. Thank you. I will now be doing my task 3, my prose, which is The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. Tom appeared on the sidewalk with a bucket of whitewash and a long-handled brush. He surveyed the fence, sighed, and then dipped his brush into the whitewash. Slowly, he began his work, dragging the brush along the wooden panels with a look of intense concentration. Just then, Ben Rogers came down the street munching on an apple and imitating the sound of a steamboat. Ding dong, clear the track, Ben shouted. He noticed Tom and stopped. Hello, old chap, what's up? Work, Tom replied gloomily, dipping his brush into the bucket again. Work? What do you call work? Asked Ben. Why, ain't that work? Said Tom, pointing at the fence. Well, maybe it is, but maybe it ain't. All I know is it suits Tom Sawyer. Tom ignored him and kept on painting, pretending not to notice Ben's interest. Say, Tom, Ben said, leaning closer. You don't mean to tell me you like it? Like it? Tom stopped his brush mid-stroke and looked at Ben. Well, I don't see why I oughtn't to like it. Does a boy get a chance to whitewash a fence every day? Ben looked puzzled. Why, isn't it just a fence? Tom leaned back and surveyed his work critically. Maybe it is, but it's not every day you get a chance to make something look this fine. Aunt Polly wouldn't just trust anyone with this job, you know. Ben's interest grew. He took another bite of his apple. Say, Tom, let me try a little. Tom hesitated, pretending to think it over. No, I reckon it wouldn't hardly do, Ben. You see, Aunt Polly's mighty particular about this fence, right here on the street. You know, if it was a back fence, maybe, but this one's different. Oh, come on, Tom, I'll be careful. I'll give you the rest of my apple. Tom sighed and put on a reluctant expression. Well, I suppose I could let you try, but you've got to be careful, Ben. You don't want to mess it up. Sure, Ben said eagerly, handing over the apple and grabbing the brush. Tom stepped back, munching on the apple, as Ben went to work. Soon, other boys came by, and Tom repeated his performance, trading turns at the brush for marbles, a tin soldier, and even a kite string. By the end of the afternoon, the fence had 3 coats of whitewash, and Tom had a pile of treasures. He leaned back, marveling at his genius. There's nothing like making a boy want what he can't have, he said, smiling to himself. I will now do my task 4, my expressive reading. Bernice Bobs Her Hair by F. Scott Fitzgerald. While Marjorie was breakfasting late next day, Bernice came into the room with a rather formal good morning, sat down opposite, stared intently over, and slightly moistened her lips. What's on your mind? Inquired Marjorie, rather puzzled. Bernice paused before she threw her hand grenade. I heard what you said about me to Mother last night. Marjorie was startled, but only showed a faintly heightened color, and her voice was quiet, even when she spoke. Where were you? In the hall. I didn't mean to listen, at first. After an involuntary look of contempt, Marjorie dropped her eyes and became very interested in balancing a stray cornflake on her finger. I guess I'd better go back to Eau Claire if I'm such a nuisance. Bernice's lower lip was trembling violently, and she continued on a wavering note. I've tried to be nice, and I've been first neglected and then insulted. No one ever visited me and got such treatment. Marjorie was silent. But I'm in the way, I see. I'm a drag on you. Your friends don't like me. She paused and then remembered another one of her grievances. Of course I was furious week when you tried to hint to me that that dress was unbecoming. Don't you think I know how to dress myself? No, murmured Marjorie, less than half loud. What? I didn't hint anything, said Marjorie succinctly. I said it as I remember, that it was better to wear a becoming dress 3 times straight than to alternate it with 2 frights. Do you think that was a very nice thing to say? I wasn't trying to be nice. Then after a pause, when do you want to go? I will now be doing my task 5, which is my reflection. This is the last task of my Trinity exam. Question number 1. How did you connect to your character's emotional journey through one of your performances? Well, in my opinion, I connected really well with Greta Thunberg's speech in the UN Action Climate Summit. I saw that she was extremely frustrated and she was really concerned about climate change and she really wanted to address that to the audience. I made sure that I used pauses and I also used multiple hand gestures to really amplify her message. So I really emphasized her frustration as well with the sense of urgency that I created in my tone, especially when she says, "How dare you?" It's one of the most powerful moments of her speech. So I made sure to really slow down those words and emphasize on them. But I also realized while performing that Greta isn't just angry. She's also slightly worried or concerned. So when she says that the world is waking up and change is coming, she's extremely worried about the future effects of climate change. Thinking about the actual effect of climate change really made me change how I perform this, as I could see the effects in front of me. And this helped the performance feel much more natural and also helped me feel the actual weight of what she was trying to say. I also use a lot of pauses to highlight key moments, just so that Greta does, so that the message really hit home for me and the audience. Question number 2. What did you do in preparation to help you bring one of the words/characters of one of your pieces off the page? For me, the one that I am going to choose for this question is The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. I wanted to make sure, since Ben and Tom are real people, that they felt as authentic as possible. So first, I made sure that I understood their personalities. Tom is a lot more fun and mischievous, whereas Ben is extremely gullible. So reading the lines out loud really helped me figure out the best tone and the best pacing for each of the characters. I also thought about the physical actions that they're doing. So for example, when Tom was painting the fence, or when Ben was munching on his apple. I added these small gestures to make the scene a lot more believable. And since I was switching between 2 characters, I made sure that I changed my tone and my pitch just slightly so the audience understood who I'm imitating. I recorded myself a few times to see what worked, and then I adjusted based on the feedback from my teachers. So this really helped me enhance my performance and make sure that it feels as real as possible. Question number 3. What did you do to keep your voice and body safe for an effective performance? Before performing, I made sure that I warm up my voice so that I didn't strain it. I did gargles with warm water, and I also did some light vocal exercises just to prepare my voice and make sure nothing went wrong. In my performance, breathing was also really important. So I practiced my breathing exercises and taking deep breaths to make sure that I had the support that I needed for longer lines that I had to say. I did slight stretches to keep my body relaxed, and especially my shoulders and neck, since tension can affect my performance. Another thing I was careful about was my space, since I used a lot of hand gestures to make sure that I don't bump into anything and that I could move freely around without worrying about knocking something over, or getting distracted. So all of these things made sure that my voice and body were in the best condition for my performance and that I was safe. Question number 5. What challenges does the chosen style of writing of one of the pieces present vocally? In my opinion, presenting Television by Roald Dahl was the trickiest piece out of all of them because of its rhythm and its playful tone. I had a bit of a challenge trying to achieve the sudden tone shifts. So some lines like, it drops the sense in the head, it was really dramatic and it needed a sharp delivery. But other instances, such as once they start, oh boy, it was a lot more playful and I had a lot of fun doing it. So it had to sound light and playful. So balancing both of those at the same time was a challenge, especially in the same piece, while making the performance feel natural. In my opinion, the poem also has a very strong sense of rhythm and rhyme, so if I messed up my articulation and pacing, it would lose its flow. So I had to practice controlling my breathing and articulation so that I could keep up with the rhythm without rushing it. It took some work to make it feel smooth, but once I got the rhythm, it was a lot more fun to perform and I thoroughly enjoyed it. This brings my Trinity Grade 6 to a close. Thank you.